What up, y'all? Although the year might be ending, NBA basketball keeps on churning. And today we got to talk about a trade here. Now, when we talk about the New York Knicks and the Toronto Raptors, there are a few words that, come to the rise to the top, I guess. New York Knicks, historical franchise, very underperforming compared to the other founding franchises. But, when you look at the addition of Jalen Brunson the past couple of years, Julius Randle starting to really get back on track. There's a very nice steady climb we're seeing here, but it's very marginal. You could say the same for the Toronto Raptors ever since they won the championship in 2019. The year after, they were really solid, still amongst the cream of the crop in the East, but haven't really been able to get to that second win, that next level when it comes to going from not only just having a playoff spot, but to jumping into being a playoff contender. And today, I don't want to jump the horse, but we got some solid moves to talk about. So, the New York Knicks and Toronto Raptors have traded. On the end of the New York Knicks, they're acquiring OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn, Seattle's finest. I think he's from Seattle. On the other side, Toronto is acquiring, the Canadian native, the man who's going back for some home cooking, RJ Barrett, alongside with him. Perennial sixth man of the year, and now undoubtedly, hopefully, the starting point guard for a decade plus, Emmanuel Quickley. As well as, I think this is going to be probably the biggest underrated asset of this trade, a 2024 second from the Detroit Pistons. Now, when we discuss trades, everyone's quick to find who's the winner and who's the loser. I think before we look at that, let's talk about it from each side. Let's start with the Knicks. So for the Knicks, what I think this does is when you start from bottom up, Malachi Flynn, bit in the doghouse, so I'm going to skip him. But Precious Achiuwa, when you look at the New York Knicks, the center rotation has been very spotty. And that's not because they're playing bad, because when Mitchell Robinson was healthy, very solid dude. Jericho Sims is a big body you can throw there, but he's also injured. So it's all really been on the shoulders of Isaiah Hartenstein, who, coming from last year, very solid backup big. And now that he's thrusted into the starting role, you don't really have much size behind you. That's where you get a guy like Precious Achiuwa. 6'9" or 6'8", bit of a Swiss Army knife, kind of a tweener, but has that ability to guard effectively, I think, 3 through 5, definitely 4 to 5. And he's a guy I think just never really got any consistent burn. He would give you spurts. He would give you some really good, showing some flashes that he could be a solid rotational player. But it's hard to really catch a rhythm when you're playing 15 minutes this night, maybe 22 the next, 9, getting DNPs, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited for Precious to see what he's going to be able to do in this new situation. Is it going to be fruitful? Hopefully. Because when you look at it, Isaiah Hartenstein's really their only big. Julius Randle is more of like a big, like a 4 than like your classical idea of a big. So what Precious is going to do is provide some solid size. But the cream of the crop here, the creme de la creme, Indiana's finest by way of the UK, OG Anunoby as a Knick. Whew, that's very enticing, because I think what it does for them is it gives them a clear, very clear point of attack defender. And when it comes to really keying in on the defense, when it comes to having that whole unit functioning, you need a couple things. Number 1 being a solid big, and then number 2 being a point of attack defender. When you have the guys on the wing, they're solid as well, but if you don't have that foundation from the front and the foundation from the back, it's kind of hard to really key in on that. So OG, clamps. That's really the only word you can think of him. He's been undoubtedly one of the best wing defenders in the past few years, maybe past since he really got in. But what's been his problem with Toronto? Not really having a clear scoring hierarchy, but now here I think it's undoubtedly going to be Jalen Brunson as your certified bus driver, Julius Randle at your 2, and OG Anunoby I think is your clear third option. And I think what it does for that is it gives them security to not only lock in on the offensive side, but now we're going to see him, I think, really play with a second wind to him, really play with a new battery pack in his back, if you could say it like that. Because, I mean, OG Anunoby, when you give him the keys and you allow him to create his own offense, whew, some nice stuff can happen for sure. And when it comes down to it, I think what the Knicks did here was they gave up two really solid players, or I'll say two solid players to get one really solid player. And that's not anything to say against RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, because those guys are very solid guys in their own right. But when you think of like a specialist and just a guy who can really go from a jack of all trades to really being elite at one particular skill set, that's OG Anunoby. I mean, undoubtedly, like I said, one of the best defenders in his position, one of the best defenders in the league. You add that to a Knicks team and a crowd that loves when a guy is able to really, be a dog. I think OG is going to kill it there. And, the one thing that is looming is the matter of his extension. But, when you get rid of RJ Barrett, who's 20 plus million, Emmanuel Quickley, who is going to be 20 plus million, it doesn't give me too many worries for him remaining in New York, unless he doesn't really enjoy his time. But when I look at the Knicks, they're currently right in that, teetering between the play-in and a playoff spot. I don't know if this really moves the needle that much. If anything, I think your floor might sink a little bit because, like I said, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, that's two solid rotational players. And when you get to the playoffs and, you're running 8, 9 at the most, but typically 8-man rotations, losing 2 and only having 1, it can get to you, especially when you consider foul trouble, him being at the point of the attack. That could be something that could be very prevalent. But like I said, your floor might sink a bit, but the ceiling grows a little bit bigger. Probably the same thing though as a second round exit. However, I'm excited to see what this team looks like. So let's see it. On the other side, oh man, Masai Ujiri saved his job, saved his legacy. He hasn't really done anything since acquiring Kawhi when you think about it. Because, I mean, the biggest move was what? Acquiring Jakob Poeltl, who you already had initially, but you obviously had to give up to get to Kawhi. But nah, the brother cooked here. Because, I mean, when you think about it, you're gaining not only 2 solid rotational players, but like I said, that second round Detroit Pistons pick is just as good as a bottom of the first round pick. And when you look at like the past few drafts, you have like the creme de la creme, the Wembys, the Chets, the Cades. But when you look at like the second round and towards the end of the draft, you got things like a Desmond Bane not too long ago. Herb Jones was a second round pick. There's just a plethora of guys who have been late round talents, but have shown that lottery, even damn near top 5 level of like play. So undoubtedly, like I said earlier, that second round pick is really very, very valuable. Could even be something you package alongside Pascal if you end up trading for him or trading him. Now, moving on from there, man, like I said, let's start with number 1, RJ Barrett. The Toronto boy is coming home. I mean, if the jerseys weren't already being made, they're damn near probably going to be sold out sooner rather than later. And when it comes down to it, I mean, RJ, he's a guy that is very solid. He's a guy that's proven to be, at bare minimum, a solid rotational player. But you don't know if you've really seen enough to really, for sure, stamp him as Star J, Maple Jordan, those kind of nicknames that get thrown out when you are that kind of talent. And RJ Barrett definitely has all the tools to do that. When you look at him, and even to go out of the NBA realm, world basketball, when it comes to Team Canada, he's one of those bus drivers alongside Shea. Those two are two of the guys that you really look to be your guys. And when we're looking at this Toronto team, I think it's similar to the same thing. Scotty's for sure looking like the bus driver. Pascal's still there, a little bit of the vet who's still there to, really show you the ropes, really be like one of the guys that you go to in the late game. But RJ, I think when you put him back home, when you're able to surround him around like a crowd that I think will for sure have his back compared to New York, where one game they're with you, next game they're against you. I think that'll help his confidence. It'll help him to get a rhythm and evidently really, potentially get back to that range of a guy that deserves to be a top 3 pick. Now, the biggest, like, I think needle mover in this trade itself is Emmanuel Quickly. Because I mean, the guy is you could gather every good word to describe a scorer, efficient from the line, multiple level scorer, able to create for himself, able to create for others. That's Emmanuel Quickly. And to consider that we've seen him play such amazing basketball, and most of that has been in the capacity of being a backup, man, we've seen when guys go to different situations, when you give them the keys. James Harden is the number one when I'm thinking of. I'm not saying Emmanuel Quickly is going to be the next James Harden, but when you move a guy from a situation where he's maybe 6th, 5th, or 4th on the pecking order, and you move him to where he starts to go up a bit, the production is going to show. The efficiency is the one thing that could maybe lack a little bit. However, Emmanuel Quickly has shown that he's an efficient scorer, that he's a really good scorer, one of the best among the league when you talk about bench guys. And man, putting him in a starting role alongside Scotty, Pascal, RJ, Jakob Pertl, the opportunity for, I think you're going to get a lot more pick and roll actions when it comes to the Raptors. I'm excited to see what Darko does with them. And man, this raises their, not only the floor, but the ceiling, I think, immensely. Because when you looked at it, the Raptors were a team that were really, fighting for a play-in, bare minimum, maybe, or like your top expectation would be the 6th seed. But now I think, I don't want to say this necessarily their floor. However, when you look at it, you got Scotty, you got Pascal, you got Jakob, you got Gary Trent Jr., Grady Dick, still one of those guys you could develop. But you got Otto Porter Jr. There's just a lot of guys you can add that all really know how to play basketball, all really play at a high level, all really play at an effective level. And when you loop that together and you add in a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, who, like I said, one of the best scorers when it comes to the bench, and RJ Barrett, who's a solid wing, who still, I think, has another gear or two to get to, it's exciting. Now, because I mean, like I said earlier, Masai Ujiri, outside of like the Jakob Pertl acquisition from last year, there's just a really big sense of stagnation. So much so that prior to this, Raptor fans were saying, at the day that I'm uploading this, they're playing the Pistons, they're saying, we want to lose. We want to have a reason for Masai. We want to force his hand to really make a move. And not only did he make a move, he made a pretty big move, not only for the now, but 5-6 years down the line, this could be something that really, really shows in the Raptors' favor. Because like I said, RJ Barrett, you're getting a phenom who's coming home. You're getting a guy, could be very solid. Could we get to the similar production of an OG Anunoby? The defense is another thing. But overall, you're getting an equal, essentially, when it comes to production-wise. Now, culturally, it's going to be a whole different thing, because I'm sure they're going to roll out the red carpet for him. I mean, there's probably going to be an RJ Barrett night, the first home game he's there, whatever it may be. And you add that alongside a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, who has all the capability, absolutely all the capability to be a lead guard. Man, the Raptors could be back sooner than we would think. You add that on top of the fact that Scotty's playing at an all-star level. And man, the sky's the limit, essentially, because you're adding a lot of really good pieces together. And they're pieces where you don't even know if that's their final form. Scotty's for sure going to get to another level. Like I said, Emmanuel and RJ still have room to grow. And when you add that alongside guys like Grady Dick, who hasn't even started to get playing, but we know can shoot the ball. Whew. Toronto in 3 or 4 years, maybe even 2, I think is going to be right back to that level of being among the top in the East. Not necessarily at the level of a Boston, a Milwaukee, or a Philly, but right in that about to burst the bubble potentially, for sure. And with that, have a happy new year. I'll see y'all soon.